First, start by securing your thread to the hook. Once you have it nice and secure, snip off the excess, and then continue wrapping your thread back to the bend of the hook. The first thing we're going to add to this fly is a rattle. We're going to place the rattle on top of the shank of the hook and then wrap our thread around it many times to make sure it's nice and secure. In between all of the security wraps, be sure to work your thread above the shank, yet underneath the rattle itself, to help create that nice base that will keep the rattle from slipping on either side of the shank of the hook. Once you feel you have the rattle nice and secure, brush on some Zap-A-Gap to ensure the security. The underbody of this fly is going to be made out of bucktail. From the hide, we've snipped off about the same diameter as a number 2 pencil and then cleared away any of the loose fibers that may have been entangled in the material itself. Now take your material, point it forward, and secure it underneath the shank of the hook so that the security wraps are right in front of the rattle. Next, we're going to repeat the step, only with a chartreuse piece of bucktail, and we're going to secure it on top of the shank of the hook this time. Be sure to wrap extra security wraps to make sure that the bucktail itself does not slip around the shank of the hook. Once everything is nice and secure, take your scissors and start snipping away the excess fibers all around the shank of the hook. And even after that step is complete, we're still going to add a few more security wraps. Once you have the material as secure as you can get it, add a little bit of Zap-A-Gap just for some insurance. Now it's time to bend the bucktail back. In the process, make sure you're keeping the chartreuse up top and the orange underneath, and bring your thread to the front of the material. Once the bucktail has been tamed and pulled back, it's time to build up a head of thread in front of the material. It will take many wraps of thread to build up a nice head to the front of this material, but in the end it will help to keep the bucktail from laying forward. To add an extra hand in this process, we're going to add a fair amount of Zap-A-Gap all around the head of this material. And after you've held the material down for a little while and let the Zap-A-Gap dry, let the material go, and you should have a nice halo effect of bucktail as the underbody to your streamer. And now it's time to create the Flashabou cocktail. The first step is snipping away a healthy chunk of Flashabou. Next, select an end of the Flashabou and pull at some of the fibers so that you are staggering the cluster of flash. Staggering the ends is extremely important because in the end, it'll ultimately give you the shape of a fish. Next, we are going to add a little bit of UV minnow belly to our flash cocktail, along with some orange, some green, and some yellow Flashabou, all of which have been staggered before being added to the cocktail. Once it's complete, pick up the flash cocktail, try not to lose any of the fibers, and begin to slowly run your scissors through the cocktail itself. This technique will not only get the tangles out of your cocktail, but will also mix the material to make it more evenly dispersed. Once that side is done, flip the cocktail over and do the same technique on the opposite end. And once it's complete, you have a nice mixed tapered cocktail to add to your fly. Do your best to find the center of the cocktail and secure it down right at the head of the bucktail. Now we don't want to secure down the cocktail right on top of the shank of the hook, so what we do is we manipulate the material so that it's all around the shank of the hook, and then secure it down so that the material is not just on top of the shank of the hook, but all around the hook itself. Now when we pull back the rest of the cocktail, we want to create that same effect of having the material secured around the shank of the hook. Once that has been accomplished, make a few security wraps to hold back the cocktail so that it splays back nicely around the rest of the fly. And now to finish off the body, we're going to add a little bit of black flash to the top of our fly. Stagger the ends just as we've done before and secure down the black flash on top of the shank of the hook, making sure the tips of the black flash go as long as the body of the fly itself before you secure it down on top of the shank of the hook. Once that step is complete, fold back the rest of the black flash and secure it down on top of the shank of the hook. Add a few extra security wraps to finish the body. Now take something like a clothespin to hold back all the material of your fly so that we can create the head. The head of the fly is created with an EP anadromous brush. Simply tie down the wiry stem of the brush, making sure the rest of the brush is faced backwards. And then take your thread and wrap it just shy of the eye. Once your thread is out of the way, add a little bit of zap to the head of the fly, and then we're going to start to wrap the brush around the shank of the hook, creating the head of our streamer. In order to avoid crushing the brush, we're going to pull back the fibers with every wrap until we have reached the eye of the hook. And once we're there, secure it down with your thread and then snip off the excess brush. Once the brush is out of the way, add a few extra security wraps before it's time to whip finish. And once your whip finish is complete, snip off the excess thread. Before we move on, take the tips of your scissors and run them through the brush fibers of the head to make sure that they're all nice and splayed out evenly around the entire fly. Once that's complete, lay the fly down on its side and then splay out the material so that it's ending up on top and underneath the shank of the hook. Now take an olive Sharpie marker and color the top of the head so that it blends in nicely with the rest of the flash. Once that's complete, we're going to take black Sharpie marker and just do the very tips of the head of the fly so that it blends in with the rest of the body. To finish the fly, we're going to add a few eyeballs. Take a little bit of zap gel and squeeze out a fair amount where an eye would be on the fly. With an eye proportioned to your fly, lay it down on top of the zap gel and push it down a little bit so that it really seizes to the material and to the zap gel itself. We're going to do the same technique on the opposite side of the fly. Once that is complete and everything is dried, you have yourself a Bauer's pike fly. Despite the name, this streamer pattern is not just for pike. The color combination we just came up with is meant for peacock bass, but the flash cocktail you come up with can be used to target fish anywhere around the world.